Everybody, just want to make a quick video because if you've looked at the news or been scrolling on Twitter, looks like Christian Walker has signed a 3-year, $60 million deal with the Astros. Um, Probably not as much money as we thought he was going to get. Pretty good deal for the Astros. A guy who is elite defensively at first base. He's a he hits for pretty good power. He's a good overall hitter. Um, he's just an overall all around good baseball player. Um, Obviously, between him and Pete Alonso, they were the two big free agent first basemen, and for a position that doesn't really have a lot of high demand, it seems as of right now. It seems like Walker did have more of a demand than Alonso does because of his defense. Um, but it kind of changes what I think Alonso is going to get in free agency. Personally, I was thinking, you know, 5 or 6 years, $25 million a year, $30 million a year, possibly. 5 years, $30 million a year, or 6 years, $25 million a year. I don't know if that's going to happen now. I think that you look at while yes, Christian Walker is a older player, he's 34 years old. I think that overall teams see him more as a guy who's going to stay at first base, a guy who can play great defense, a guy who overall can hit a little bit better. Now, he's not the prolific power hitter that Alonso is. He's a good power hitter. He's a 30 home run guy, right? But Pete Alonso, when he's right and when he's healthy and when he's playing his best, he's a 40 to 50 home run guy. He's a true power hitter. Now his average is lower, right? He doesn't get on base as much. He strikes out more. He swings at terrible pitches sometimes, and it frustrates everyone. He's very streaky, but I don't see that teams think of Alonso long term as a first baseman or even having a position. They think of him as a DH eventually. Those big, strong power hitters don't necessarily age well. Um, you look at anyone in history other than like Bonds and some of the other steroid guys. Once they're 34, 35 years old, the power numbers start to go down. They just start getting injured and they lumber and they clog up the bases and you have to move them to DH. So I think that's where people are with Alonso. So with a 3-year, $20 million contract for Walker, I think you're thinking more in the terms of maybe at the most 5 to 6 years for Alonso, but I think there's a possibility that it could be more of a 3 or 4 year deal. Um, I think at a 3 or 4 year deal, you're talking more than $25 million a year. If you're talking about a 5 or 6 year deal, you're probably looking close to 20 million, like Christian Walker got. So I think it helps the Mets kind of lower his contract demands. It also helps the Mets in terms of it's going to start to move the market. Not necessarily help the Mets, but help us fans who are needing something to happen, right? We're all getting a little impatient. We want something to happen. I think now Alonso will happen sooner than later. Um, because once a market starts to move for a position, generally it moves to the next guy and then the next guy. And then, it's like when you're doing a fantasy draft, right? There's a run on receivers, there's a run on running backs, a run on quarterbacks. It's kind of the same way in baseball free agency. You have to get the guy when you can. And if now the teams that were talking to Christian Walker and missed out on him are going to now move their attention to Pete Alonso. So now the Mets might have to get into a bit of a bidding war for him. Whether they do that, I don't know. I don't know that Stearns sees Pete Alonso as a long term fit for this team. But you also never know what Stearns is thinking. He doesn't tell you anything. The organization doesn't really tell you anything. Even when they tell you something, they're not really telling you anything. People were making a big deal out of it when at the Juan Soto press conference, um, Steve Cohen was asked about Alonso, and he said, "Oh yeah, we're working on that. Hopefully, it all works out. We'd love to have him back." And it's like he's not really saying anything there. He's saying Yeah, we'll see what happens. We don't know. We'll see. To me, that means we'd love to have him back on our terms. We're not going to give him what he wants. It's what we want to give him. And if he's not comfortable with that, he'll move on somewhere else. So I think that it will move the market. It'll make it happen a little bit quicker, and it will bring down the price, which is they're both helpful for the Mets. But I don't know for sure that it's going to happen now because I think there'll be a lot more competition. All right, moving on to what I really wanted to make a video about today, which was Roki Sasaki. There was some updates yesterday. It was reported by Andy Martino and a couple others that Roki Sasaki met with the Mets. It was reported the day or two before that he also met with the Yankees. We all know that there's interest, and the most likely destinations are, L.A. and San Diego. Maybe the Mariners, maybe the White Sox, maybe the Red Sox. They're all involved. We don't really know where he's going to go, but what we did hear is um, when he's looking for a new team. This came out a couple weeks ago during the winter meetings. His agent, when he was interviewed, said that what he's looking for in a team is an people who can make him a better pitcher, right? So he wants more development in his pitching. There's no one set up as well as the Mets to do that. You can look at other teams; they all have their own pitching labs, they all have their own pitching coaches, their player development, their pitching development, all that stuff. Jeremy Hefner is known as a guy now who fixes pitchers, right? David Stearns has always been known as hiring the type of player development that can develop these pitchers and make them better and maybe tweak little things, or hey, throw your sweeper more, maybe we'll add a sinker, maybe they know how to get the best out of pitchers. That's why I'm not so worried about them signing these number 4 and 5 starters, because I don't expect them necessarily to be 4 and 5 starters for the Mets. Now they could be. This could be one that Stearns fails on and that the Mets fail on, but I'm not as concerned about it. But that's what Roki Sasaki has said that he wants. He wants an organization that can help him become better and also help keep him healthy, because he has had some injury concerns in Japan. So I think the Mets are set up well in that department. Whether that's all true or not, I don't know. You don't actually know what a guy wants until it happens. I would still, if I had to put my money on him going somewhere, it would probably be the Dodgers, then probably the Padres, and then maybe third the Mets, or maybe the Yankees third, the Mets fourth. I think those are the 4 teams it will probably come down to, which it seems like it always comes down to, especially with the Japanese players. But I think that the West Coast and California specifically are so well set up for a Japanese star. They have all the infrastructure there, right? Especially the Dodgers. They have Otani and Yamamoto already there. So they're already set with that infrastructure of bringing in a Japanese player and immediately transitioning them into the majors. There's also the fact that it's closer to home for the Japanese player. They don't have to take an extra 6 hours on a flight to get home, or to have their family visit here. Um, so they always have the advantage when it comes to Japanese and Asian players, and particularly. But maybe that changes. Maybe the buzz of signing Soto and after the season they had last year, maybe that helps the Mets in their pursuit. Um, his agent also said that he had some issues with the media in Japan and it affected him. And honestly, when you think about that, I don't know how the Japanese media is. I've never been exposed to it. I've never seen it, but I doubt that it's as crazy as New York media, right? So that's another kind of red flag where you kind of sit back and say, maybe he's not cut out for New York. Maybe he's a little too sensitive, but there's no way to know that until if and when that actually happens. Um, I wouldn't mind seeing him go to a smaller market team. If it's not the Mets, I'd like to see him go to a small market team just because they're not used to getting big time free agents, and he's not going to cost money. So why not go where there's not a lot of pressure and become a great major league pitcher, and then in 6 years you leave and be go to wherever whoever pays you the most, right? So I could see that being a route he goes. If it's not the Mets, so that's what I would like to see. Um, but we'll find out. This isn't going to happen anytime soon. This is something that is slated really for January when the new international free agent year kicks in. January 15th, between the 15th and 23rd, is when that signing period happens. And the Mets already have their bonus money spent. Um, so they would have to back out of those commitments to sign Sasaki, which would be unfortunate, but it's something that happens, right? Anyone who signs Sasaki is going to have to back out of their commitments for 2025. So it's not the end of the world. Maybe it'll hurt you with that specific academy or that specific agent or whatever, but if you have a chance to get Sasaki, you have to do it. He's a great talent, and you never know what a 17-year-old kid is going to be. You see uh, Sasaki perform in a professional league. You might not know how great he's going to be, but you know that he'll at least be in the majors and at least perform in the majors. Where a 17-year-old kid who's not built, his frame's not built out. You don't know what he's going to end up being. You don't really know as much. It's more of a risk to sign a kid from the Dominican Republic or any international free agency when they're 16, 17 years old. You don't know what they're going to turn out to be. They're not men yet. They're still they're teenagers. So if you have the opportunity to get Sasaki, I don't think you think twice about backing out of your deal um, with anyone. So that's really all I wanted to talk about. Wanted to give a little update. Obviously, most people probably already heard that. It's just giving my 2 cents on everything. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you've gotten to this point in the video, subscribe, give me a like, comment. What do you think the Mets should do? Are they going to sign Pete? Are they going to get Sasaki? Where do you think Sasaki goes? Where do you think Pete goes? What do you think the Pete contract will end up being? Um, but yeah, that's it. All right. So until next time, let's go Mets.